Good morning. Thank you, and thank you for joining, everybody. And thanks for the introduction here. So today we're going to talk through the basic features and functionality of QuickBooks Online Accountant and QuickBooks Online. Talk a little bit about managing clients in a QBOA account. If you were in the earlier session, I don't want to be super redundant on that, so it'll be just a bit of an overview on the QBOA functionality. We'll talk through finding and utilizing the accountant toolbox while you're in a client's QuickBooks Online account, because I really want to make sure that you're utilizing all the great tools and workflow options available for accountants within QBO. We'll spend some time on how to customize, send, and share reports, and talk through some additional resources. And I'll have some tips and tricks throughout, because it looks like we've got a good blend of people who are new to QuickBooks Online and very experienced. Looks like one or two of you have moved over a lot of clients, have gone through our Pro Advisor training, so that's great to see. So hopefully there will be a little bit for everyone here today. To set the stage a bit, I did want to bring your attention to the fact that we now have 1.5 million subscribers worldwide on QuickBooks Online. That number is continuing to grow, and while desktop isn't going away, we are seeing that the majority, about 80%, of new users that have never used any of our QuickBooks products are turning to being on the cloud and using QuickBooks Online over desktop. And that comes from the benefits of really being on the cloud. And these might be familiar to most of you, but let's talk through a few of the main benefits of being on the cloud in general. Improved collaboration. So being able to have anybody that needs to be signed into the account accessing it all signed in at the same time. So you don't have to worry about single user mode, multi-user mode, different people kind of sharing sign-on information. Everyone has their own user ID and password, is able to sign in and view the same pages at the same time. The accounts are accessible anywhere, anytime, any device. This is a huge component of being in QuickBooks Online, because if you're using a PC and your client uses a Mac, it doesn't matter, because you can sign in from any device that you have internet on and use the browser and have the same look and feel, the same experience. We have mobile apps so that you can pull up QuickBooks Online on an iPad, an iPhone, or an Android tablet device or tablet phone. And so the idea is that you can kind of pick up and do the work you need to do in QBO from wherever you are. I was at a conference a couple months ago, and somebody stood up in the room and said, "Hey everyone, look at my tan." And we of course all thought, oh gosh, what's this woman doing? She's standing up. But she wanted us to know that she was able to work on her QBO clients on the go when she went on a trip with her family, and it was something that she hadn't done in a very long time during tax season, especially as a CPA. So having that flexibility, being able to work from home, from the office, and not lose any time getting that file up or doing anything with hosting. So there's no need to transfer data files around, no need to host. You're just signing in and getting right to work. We use the same data encryption technology as leading banks, so you can keep that peace of mind that everything is secured in the cloud. Uncovering more insights, and what I mean by that is we pull in banking information that's already on the cloud. So you're leveraging data that's already there, not just with banking, but also with apps, so that you can bring information in and get more real-time data and be more of that advisor, because you're leveraging information that's available without doing a ton of data entry. And then QuickBooks Online is always up to date. There's no need to worry about installing a new version a few years from now or managing different licenses. It's an online subscription, it's ongoing, and anytime we do an update on our side, we push that out automatically. You don't have to worry about downloading or installing anything new. And then one of my favorite components of QuickBooks Online is that you have access to our ever-evolving ecosystem of tools. So being able to leverage the apps ecosystem to build customized solutions in response to your client's needs. So we have a large number of apps out there. I'm not going to talk too much on apps today, but if you're curious, our website with our app store is apps.com. So that brings you to all the different third-party applications that can be added to QuickBooks Online to do even more and to really make the solution completely fit all sorts of different business needs, whether it's something very, very specific and niche to just improvements on automating different functions of the program. There are over 26,000 developers actively creating QuickBooks Online apps today, so there's a lot of drive for different developers to build tools to help small businesses succeed and to help the work you do be more efficient. Let's jump into QuickBooks Online Accountant and talk through some of the functions there. Topics for this first little mini section: client dashboard, team access, adding a new QBO client, an existing QBO client to a QBOA account, and the Pro Advisor tab. So I'm going to call QuickBooks Online Accountant QBOA as we're going through as an abbreviation. So what's QuickBooks Online Accountant? It is our account for accounting firms to be able to manage their team and their clients all in one spot. So you should be seeing my screen now. I'm signed into Socrates Accounting, which is the firm that I work under, and I'm Valerie. And when I sign into my firm's QBOA account, I see all of the clients that I've been giving access for. In the past, each individual accountant or pro advisor, bookkeeper would have their own QBO account or QBOA account and access their clients that way. But now with our kind of new QBOA, our new QuickBooks Online account experience, what we're finding is firms want one place to see all of their clients and then assign team members accordingly. And so what I've done is set up an email address that all of my clients will invite the firm in under. So it might be something like client services at socratesaccounting.com. And that allows me as kind of the admin user to assign which team members are going to access the client, but still be able to see a full list of all the clients at the firm. So when I'm signed in, I'm Valerie. I have 35 clients, and we've surfaced a lot of information on what's going on in these clients' QBO accounts right on this home page. So I can hover over and see who last signed in and when. If the books are closed, I'll see the closing date. If there's something like a change to close books, changes to reconciliation, have some unaccepted transactions here, and surfaces in that information, and I can click into those areas to drill in to get a bit more detail. We also surface when the online banking last downloaded in new transactions. Some of my test accounts, it's been a while, but typically you would have that be an ongoing connection, and so it would show you that new downloaded information came in the last couple of days. We also surface anything going on with payroll. So if there's the next pay date, the last pay date, if the payroll account is canceled or anything's going on with it. And you can configure this a bit under the small gear to show some additional status columns as well. When I click onto a client's name, I'm brought to an expanded view of what's going on in this client's books. So along the top, I can hover over and see which other employees at my firm have access to this client. If I put in email address and phone number information, I've got quick little links to hover over to see those details as well. I can also leave, looks like this note hasn't been updated in a while. Maybe he's not available till August 20th now. And that'll be something that all 12 of these other employees at my accounting firm will see when they review the client. Down below, I have additional links for books closed, last sign-in, last download, as well as an account watch list where I can see my clients' balances and when things were last reconciled. I also have shortcuts to those items that might need my attention, like changes to closed books, changes to reconciliation. Looks like I have a few checks without payee, as well as our trial balance, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a little while here. The team is managed through this left-hand navigation, and so only employees that have access to manage the team would have a link to this, or if you can set them up as view only. I'm not going to talk through this too much, but something to keep in mind is my client is inviting in Socrates Accounting, but anyone on this list can be enabled to have access to that client. And so if I edit somebody here and setting up a user profile, I'm inviting them into the firm's books, and then managing what level of access they have in terms of the firm administration, and then which clients they have access to. And this can be changed at any time. So if Emily comes on board and she's only going to have 1 or 2 clients now, I can come in, check boxes off, add them and remove them as needed, and even start searching if I have a big long list of clients. And then if she were to leave the firm altogether, I can revoke her access for all clients she has access to all at once by marking her inactive. Another benefit of coming into QBOA is that you have access to our ProAdvisor program. So when we set up the firm and we invite in the team users, every time a team member logs in, they have access to their own ProAdvisor tab where they're able to review our additional training resources. We have a certification program. It's completely free, where you can go through training modules. There's supplemental guides you can download, and you can become QuickBooks Online certified and have a ProAdvisor badge that you can include in your email signature, and also get listed on our ProAdvisor page so that small businesses that are searching for an expert can find you. There's completely free marketing available there. We also have an advanced certification. We can go through the training modules and supplemental guides there, and the regular one is available for CP as well. Even if you don't go through the ProAdvisor training, there are some other resources in this ProAdvisor tab that you may want to take a look at. There's training guides, including training guides for your clients. So these are PDF documents that you can print out and share or email to your clients to go through some training of their own of QuickBooks Online. And if you bring them into Word, you might even add a logo or some information for your firm along the top. Discounts, resources, and notifications around the ProAdvisor program are all housed in this area. Coming back to my client list, when I'm ready to access one of my clients' books, I can click on the little green QB icon. That'll take me right into their file, or I can choose them from this drop-down list along the top and even start typing their name to get to a specific client. If I need to invite an existing client into the QuickBooks Online Accountant account, I'll want to go into their gear and manage user. So if I already have a sign-in or the client is signing into their account and they've just been letting me view it right now, or they've invited me as a regular user, I can come down below and invite in the accounting firm. And like I mentioned before, you might have a email address that you're using for the whole firm as opposed to inviting in individuals. So in the case of my account, it is my email address, but it might be clientservices@socratesaccounting.com, for example. Now, coming back to QB Accountant, if you need to go back to your books, or to your firm, rather, you can click into the QuickBooks Accountant in the corner, or drop down and go back to your practice. So I want to show you very quickly setting up a new client in QBO before we get into the navigation. So an existing client, you can have them get invited into that email address. If you're adding a new client that doesn't already have QuickBooks Online, best thing to do is go through this profile and add a client. Now you can decide which team members of the firm are going to have access to do this. So if somebody else has set you up and you're not seeing an add client button, it may be that you don't have the permissions to add them in. But if you do, this is what it looks like. It guides you through adding the client. Now you'll want to go through these steps, whether you're setting them up from scratch or if there's somebody who's converting over from QuickBooks Desktop. So I would type in my display name here, new client, and fill in information about them as needed. And then the next page is choosing the QuickBooks products that they'll use. You can look at our chart that compares the products side by side, or if you know what you're looking for here, you can toggle down to the options. We have the Essentials and Plus, as well as the payroll add-on. So if you need regular do-it-yourself payroll or the full service payroll, where Intuit handles your tax payment and important filing responsibilities, you can choose those and compare the products. Then the next thing it presents you with is the option of whether the firm is going to pay or the client is going to pay. And the reason that I really encourage you to look to add your clients through here is because of the pricing benefits that you're able to pass along to your clients or have as a firm if you're absorbing the cost yourself. If the client pays, whatever the best promotional option we have available right now will surface here, and you can toggle through Essentials and Plus to compare those. Typically, it's a discount off of the first year of the product. If my firm pays, it's a discount for the life of the subscription. The next step is to decide if the client is going to be the master admin or the owner of the books, or if the firm is going to be the master admin. I'm just going to leave it as me just to continue forward. And then I decide which employees at the firm are going to have access from this client. Whoever the master user is, or if you've set that up as the firm as a whole, that'll be kind of automatically permission is having access. But I can add and remove people as needed that will also be working in this client's file. Something to keep in mind when a team member has access to the client's books, they are basically a company admin, so they're able to see everything, go in all the areas, and make changes to the settings. So that's something to know in advance when you're giving those permissions to other staff members. All right, so I'm going to jump back into that client's books here. And let's talk through some QBO basics, and then we'll get into the accountant tools and reporting. Our left navigation, our quick create menu, what's under the gear. So we already looked at manage users a little bit, but we'll talk about that more. Settings list, our global search, and a few Google Chrome tips as well. Those will be great for those of you that are already in QBO or when you're getting started to know some of that in advance. So I have a lot of people ask when they first come into QuickBooks Online, gosh, why does it have to be so different from desktop? I was kind of expecting the exact same look and feel when I came over into the online world. The reason that it really has such a different navigation is because of that mobile experience we were talking about earlier. A lot of small businesses are, saying, and they were, 34 years ago when they were asking to move to QuickBooks Online or started talking about it, hey, we really want to be able to run our business from our mobile devices. We're doing a lot of things from our tablets, from our phones. We're on the go. Even if we're not a traveling person, we still want to be mobile within our own workspaces. And so when we designed QuickBooks Online several years ago, the idea was that regardless of what device you were on, you'd have a similar look and feel, and it would kind of have the look and feel of a mobile device. So if you can kind of picture this in an iPad or smartphone format, our menu is on the left-hand side, so I like to picture sort of swiping my thumb to the where you can access your customers, your vendors, employees, reports, get into transactions to see banking and sales and expenses, jump into your chart of accounts, and then get into taxes, especially if you're using payroll and you have areas for payroll and then sales tax as well. The plus along the top is our Quick Create button. So this is where you can find all the different types of transactions you can create through QuickBooks Online all in one spot. So again, small businesses were saying, hey, we start using QuickBooks Desktop, there's all these different menus and drop downs, and we don't know which way to go along the top navigation. So we put everything in all in one place so that if they know I need to write a check, I need to pay a bill, go to the plus and you're able to find those things. Now, accountants were less keen on this, so we built in the accountant toolbox. And that's on the left-hand side, and this is where you can find all the functionality that's either exclusive to accountants or just most frequently used by them. And we'll be walking down this list in a little while here. The gear in the upper right-hand corner is where all of the settings and tools live, all the configurations. This particular menu is sort of split in half, or not in half, in like fourths, I suppose. One side will be all of your clients' company settings, their lists, the tools for import and export of data, and things like reconcile and budgeting. And then this far side will be my own profile there's a spot for me to leave feedback. So if there's something I'd like to see in QuickBooks Online or something that I feel could be improved upon, I can leave a quick feedback. And then we also have the options to switch company and sign out. And if you need to go into your user profile to manage your email address, to change your password or something from here. I really recommend coming into the company settings early on when you're working with a QuickBooks Online client, because there are a lot of things that you can turn on and off to configure the account to work best for the business. I'm not going to go through all of the settings, but wanted to show you a couple different areas in here, mainly in the advanced settings, because this is where I see a lot of accountants are looking for certain things and unsure where to find them. The advanced settings, where you're going to find the options to, of course, set up your tax year, but also close the books. And you can set a closing date and a password. And there's options for giving a warning or having that warning and entering a password, and that's where you set this up. This is where you can turn on tracking by class, as well as we have an added layer in QBO for tracking by location. You can use traditional class tracking, but also add location labels. One of the things I love with this is if I have a client that has multiple business sites, when I set up locations versus classes, I'm able to say, hey, if it's the east side of town, it's a different phone number and a different address than the west side, or if it's different cities or different departments. I can really configure and make sure that my invoices and emails reflect what I want the business information to be for that location. You can change the labels on this, so it can be business, department, divisions, etc. And then you can also have your more traditional class tracking up top. You can use either of those or both of them together. And then we also have some things that you can turn on and off in the way of automation. Multi-currency settings live in this advanced area, so there's a lot here that you can take a look at. One thing down at the bottom that I love to draw attention to is there is a spot for sign me out if inactive, and you can change that to up to 3 hours. So if you're feeling like you take a phone call and you come back and QBO has kicked you out, you can extend that a little bit. Manage users is also in this gear menu, and as mentioned, this is where your clients would invite in their teams, as well as invite in the accounting firms or bookkeeping firms that they'd like to access the account. So today this might be individuals, but if you're looking to really set up one account for the full firm and manage the team under it, that's where you would perhaps change this email address to something generic that represents the entire organization. In terms of the users up top, if you're on QuickBooks Online Plus, your client will have 5 users that they can invite into their books, as well as unlimited reports-only users and unlimited time-tracking users. So if you want somebody who all they can do is view reports, or if you want somebody who just comes in and enters in time activity, those are options as well. And then last but not least, this is where you would also manage the list. So chart of accounts, products and services, if you do use classes and locations, all of those things are in here, your payment methods, your terms. We've been doing a lot around products and services and beefing up the inventory capabilities in QuickBooks Online, something that we just introduced. If you are somebody who's been using it for a while and missed it, or if you haven't looked at us in a while, we now have the option to do what we're calling bundles, but they're really the equivalent of groups in QuickBooks Desktop, where you can bundle different products or services together and sell them all at once and add them to invoices that way, invoices and sales issues. Okay, I know I'm kind of flying through here, but any questions come up that you want to address right away?
Yeah, we are quiet in the question box since they said their level. So I just remind the audience that if you have any questions that pop up, just type them in the question box and we'll address them as we get to them there. So nothing right now.
Awesome, awesome. Just wanted to check in and make sure. All right, from a homepage perspective, we surface a lot of information on what's going on in the books. So if there's any alerts, things like, I know my test account's kind of funky, but if a credit card expiration was coming up, or if there was some issue maybe with bank feeds, we'd surface any kind of alerts that may need to take action or review information. If we're going to have scheduled maintenance, we usually put that up a day or so before as well and let you know it's in the middle of the night on a Saturday or something, but give you that notification. We have a task menu. This would show things like any payroll tax forms or payroll payments outstanding. You can also set up reminders for transactions. So if you want to get a reminder on the month to invoice your customers, you can set up those reminders as a recurring transaction, and those would show here too. There's money bars throughout the product to see income and expenses, your profit and loss, get some visuals, and you can drill into these areas to get more details on what's going on. This is great. Your clients can follow the red and see their overdue invoices. On the side panel, you'll see the bank accounts. Something I get asked a lot is if you can rearrange how these appear, and you certainly can. You can click this little pencil icon and drag and drop these to prioritize different bank accounts over others and how you want to view them. But I love this because you're able to surface the balance at the bank versus what's in QuickBooks and see the last time that online banking found any new information. And we'll get into that a little later here too. And then the activity feed just shows, yes.
I did have one just come in, and since you're on the screen, I think it's relevant if you go to the top. So Lori asked a question about what's the importance of the private mode.
Sure. So the private mode will hide the sensitive numbers that show up on this homepage and on the other money bars in the account. That came from a lot of requests when people first came in here. If they are used to working from a Starbucks or they're working on the train, they really didn't want all these financial details to be showing up on their homepage. So that's something, or if you feel like your computer is going to be open in your office and somebody might, look over your shoulder, that's what the privacy mode's for. Great question. All right. Last thing I wanted to draw attention to, and then we'll drill into some other areas, or actually we'll go through some Google Chrome tips, is our global search. So as an accountant user, you have a search box in your upper right-hand corner. If you click on that, it will show you recent transactions that have been added in or recent activities that you've done. But you can really get into a very, very robust search functionality from this box. If you're searching for a dollar amount in QuickBooks Online, I recommend putting the dollar sign in front of it, or at least including the decimal so it doesn't think you're searching for like a transaction ID. So if I were to search for $100, it will pull up all the transactions it found that met that criteria. But you can really get into a lot of detail with this advanced search. So you can search all transaction lines, different types of transactions, just different activities that have taken place. And for each of these, it drills into other things that you can narrow down. So if you're looking at the display name, the amount equals, is greater than, less than, lots and lots of functionality to filter out the list and really find the transaction that you're looking for. And let's talk through some Google Chrome tips. So as you may or may not know, QuickBooks Online can be used with all browsers, but Chrome tends to be the most recommended browser. I kind of consider the hierarchy Chrome and then Firefox and Safari are about equal, and then Internet Explorer is sort of last on the list. And it's not to say you can't use it. If you do use Internet Explorer, we do want you to be on the newest version, the newest download, so we may prompt you, hey, you're using an older version. And that has a lot to do with how the functionality works, but also the security. We want to make sure that everything is secure as possible within the browser, and so staying up to date on the latest versions tends to lead to the best experiences. Another reason that we recommend Chrome is because you can do some navigation and functionality kind of tricks to make yourself a bit more efficient as you're going through and using it. So I'm in Google Chrome, and one of the things I get asked a lot about is opening up multiple windows and kind of being able to view things side by side. I'm going to do this with screenshots, but I'll also show a little bit of it in the product too. So accountant users have a shortcut under the accountant toolbox to open a new window. This can be used in any browser. So if you are somebody who's using Internet Explorer, Safari, Firefox, I don't want to discourage you away from it, because you certainly can still use QBO, but again, Chrome tends to lead to the best experiences. So if you click on this new window box, it'll automatically open up a new tab in Chrome, or if you're using one of the other browsers, it'll open the page you're on in a new window. You also can right-click on the tab and choose Duplicate, and that will duplicate the page that you're on. And this is something your client could do as well, because they don't have that accountant toolbox. So if you want to duplicate the page that you're on and then navigate to another area, you're able to have, the two tabs that you can toggle between. So maybe I want to have my vendor list open on one page and write checks in another. I can have those two tabs side by side, but what I can also do is click on that check tab and hold it down and drag it away, and that allows me to have two windows. So I kind of drag and drop and have these side by side, and we're going to send this out as a document at the end if you missed that at the beginning. But then you can view, maybe you have multiple monitors and you want your vendor list on the one side, checks on the other. Same goes if you're trying to view reports side by side, or maybe you have the register open. You can open up multiple tabs and have multiple pages across. Something to keep in mind, though, is you want to refresh the pages to reflect any changes you make. So you can do that by clicking F5 on your keyboard or arrow on your browser. So if you create that check and you want to see it reflected on the other window, just refresh and it will show up.
Hey, Valerie.
Yes.
Got another question relevant to what you're talking about here. So all tabs must be the same client, correct?
Yes. So one of the things I'll show in just a second here is if you need to open up multiple clients at the same time, because there's a way to do that as well. But yes, if you're just opening duplicate tabs, you'll want those to all be for one client within the browser.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Something else you can do in Google Chrome is view recent pages. So if you see your back arrow along the top, you can click the back arrow to go to the last page you're on, but you can also right-click that and you'll see a whole list of everything that you've accessed, and not just QuickBooks websites. You'll see all the websites you access, so this is a good tip in general for Chrome. But maybe I'm in the deposit screen now, but I want to go back to something I just looked at, my recurring transactions list or whatever. I can jump back pretty quickly. You also have the option for doing bookmarks. So within Chrome, if you click the star on the URL bar, it prompts you to add in a bookmark. You can name that, and you can add it to your bookmarks bar. They also give you the option of creating folders. So you can have a folder with favorite links, maybe it's help articles or something else that you find useful. And to get to the bookmarks, if you don't see them, if you click on the little hamburger menu, or sometimes it shows up as three little dots, and go to bookmarks, show bookmarks bar, these will accumulate along the top of your page. So if you want to have a quick shortcut to deposit or journal entry or check, and without having to jump into the Quick Create or any of the other menus, you can create those shortcuts there. Okay, and this is opening multiple companies at the same time. I'm hoping that I can walk through and explain this well, but again, we'll make sure we get the slides to you if you need to follow through the steps. So sometimes you might need to open one or more QuickBooks Online companies at the same time. The way that the browsers work and opening the accounts work, you have to open different company files in separate browsers if you want to be accessing them together. So maybe it's two entities and you want to make comparisons, or maybe you're working on one client's file and another client calls you and you don't want to close what you're doing and just open up that second one. There are kind of three options, and I want to talk through what I consider the best option of this. First option is you open up one company in Google Chrome, and open Company B in Firefox, Safari, or Internet Explorer, whatever you have on your computer. The other option is you can open the second company in what's called incognito mode in Chrome. That's located under that little hamburger menu. There's an incognito mode. But something about incognito mode to keep in mind is you have to verify the account with a code every time, because incognito mode doesn't save cookies and accumulate a cache or do any of that thing. So it's a quick way to open up another one, but it is going to ask you to get an emailed code or a text message of a code to get into the account. So what I consider the best option is to set up multiple Google Chrome users and open the second company in the second user. And I'm going to fly through this because I want to be sensitive of time, and it might take a while to explain this. If you have questions on it, we can certainly follow up with you, but hopefully just sending the steps will help it make sense. So in Chrome, you can add a second person. So I may have my Valerie user, my main user that I access on my websites, and then I could set up a QBO user, a QBO second person, or maybe I just kind of name these whatever I'd like. But I go through the process in the Chrome settings of adding an additional Chrome user, and I'll use that Chrome user to open up the second company. So it guides you through adding a person in, choosing a picture, giving it a name. And once I've done that, when I'm in the browser, in the upper right-hand corner, I have an option to switch people, and it doesn't close the person that I have open. It keeps that company open and gives me another Chrome window where I can then turn around and navigate myself back to QuickBooks Online and sign into that other company. And it does have you verify it the first time you do it, but going forward it should recall that you're there. And so then I have my one client in QBO Company 1 and my other client in my second company profile, two different Chrome users. And I can toggle between them from my taskbar. So each Chrome user is given a little icon picture, and I can jump back and forth. And I can have those tabs open within each of those clients. So I don't have to worry about, you know, if I go to a different client, then all of my tabs, it's like haywire. It tells me, oh, you know, you have to go back and do this all again. So you can have those tabs open within each of them. I hope that was helpful for those of you, especially that have been doing this for a while and might run into some of those hang-ups. Let's talk through the Accountant Toolbox. So I mentioned that drop-down menu where all the exclusive functionality as well as most commonly accessed functions live. Our trial balance tool, reclassify transactions, void and delete, and we'll go into the audit log, writing off invoices, some notes on journal entries in QBO, and then reconciliation. And we'll get into reporting here afterwards. So when I'm in the QuickBooks Online file, as an accountant user, I have an accountant toolbox. Another thing that we just added in to the left of it is this little three-line hamburger menu that you can click to collapse and give yourself more space to work. It hides that left-hand menu for you. This is really great if you're going through reports, navigation, you're working on a smaller computer. Give yourself some extra space. First thing in this accountant toolbox is our trial balance. And if you've used the working trial balance tool in QuickBooks Desktop, similar, allows you to go through the account, see your balances, unadjusted balances, the year's activity, make adjusting entries, see any other transactions that have been added in, and also add any notes and work papers that you'd like to include. One of the things I really love about it is it starts a timeline across the top of any activities that happen after the tax period ended and our tax review started. And ignore my dates here because I know they're a little funky. But it will show you any activities that have transpired that were either driven by the client users or the accountant users. So it looks like I had a journal entry that was added in for that closed tax period. And I'll see these accumulate along the rows, and when I'm ready, I can update my unadjusted balance and have all of that reflect in the accounts. As I'm going through, I can check off accounts that I've completed my review on, and I can also click in to make adjusting journal entries as I'm reviewing the account. So when I'm in QBO as an accountant user, I have an option to make a journal entry and adjusting entry. Something to keep in mind here too is you can have multiple AR and AP lines in a single journal entry in QBO. So as I'm going through and creating not just adjusting journal entries, but any journal entry, it's something I can keep in mind. Just like invoices and other types of transactions in QuickBooks Online, I can make journal entries recurring. So that allows me to set up a schedule, a reminder, or unscheduled journal entry. Unscheduled just means it's a template that I can refer back to later. Another quick little navigation piece while I've got a journal entry open, not just in journal entries, but any transaction you have open in QuickBooks Online, I can click into this hourglass, and it allows me to review recent transactions of that kind. So if I want to open up something that's been saved already, I can do so, and even under the More menu, I have the options to copy, delete, get into a transaction journal if I'd like to see the debits and credits, print it, export it, and then the audit history, and we'll talk about audit history in a little bit here too. So I can make those adjusting journal entries from within the trial balance. I can also do those from the journal entry area and the drop-down. Thing to keep in mind in here is it doesn't automatically check off that adjusting entry box. Reclassified transactions is a tool that does what it sounds like. I'm able to go in and assign or change the class. I also can change the account on most transactions as long as they're not item-based. So to show what that looks like, if I drill into one of my accounts and I realize that my client should have been tracking everything by landscaping class, but they missed some transactions, I can check these off and in bulk assign the class. And if I'm reviewing other transactions and it looks like they used the wrong account, and I can click into these and review the transactions right from here, I could change the account to something else. So maybe this is supposed to be a different income account of mine, and I can make those changes in bulk as well. So great cleanup tool to keep in mind as an accounting user. Voided and deleted brings me into the audit log with the filters turned on to see anything that's been deleted or voided out. I can clear the filters. I can also access the audit log from the gear menu. And really we keep track of all the activity that's gone on in the client's file, and I can filter this out by users, date ranges, different types of activities, and really see the history of what went on. So if there are some edits to this bill, I can view that history, see how the transaction was added, what edits were made, and if I review this, so this is what we just made the edits to, right? We applied a class where they didn't used to be one. When I'm in this page, it shows me the full details. I can also click this compare button, and it will show sort of side by side what changes have been made, and I can even narrow this to only show changes. So maybe not a big deal if it's just no class and then assigning a class later, but think of this as somebody changed the name of a vendor or changed a dollar amount or a date. We really might need to trace back and figure out what happened. From the audit log, I have a link to the transaction if I need to change something back or move things around. And I can always access the audit log for any transaction, or the audit history rather, by clicking into the More and going into audit history. So that brings me right back to that page. A couple different ways to access it. Moving down the line here, writing off invoices, pretty self-explanatory. I can choose a date range, dollar amount less than, and write off to a bad debt account all in bulk. Closing the books brings you into that area we saw before with the closing date and password settings. Reconciliation, we actually have done some revamping to recently. There's a spot in QuickBooks Online called QuickBooks Labs where we put new features and functionality that are sort of in beta mode, if you will. They haven't been fully launched to everyone yet. They're fully developed, but we'd like you to try them out and give us feedback before we make that full release. So a couple things that are in there right now that you may want to turn on and check out. Reconciliation, got a new way of walking through it, and then redesigned reports. And redesigned reports is in the lab still, but for some clients, you might have seen emails over the last couple of weeks saying that that's going to be the reporting going forward, because we're starting to roll that out to everyone. When I go through the reports, I'll be showing that redesign. But you can turn things on in there, leave feedback, turn them off as needed. So I've turned on the reconciliation, and something to keep in mind with this, I'm just going to go into one of my accounts and resume, or I can start a reconcile from the beginning. If you're using the bank feed, which I really encourage, leveraging the online banking to bring transactions into QuickBooks Online, as you match transactions in QBO to things that are already in the books, or if you add them right through the bank feed, they get marked as cleared in the register. And so reconciliation becomes a breeze. When I come into the reconcile page, I can view my payments, my deposits, view everything together. And any transactions that have come through the online banking get marked with this little green icon. If it has a green icon and a plus, that means that I've set up automatic banking rules to have transactions that come through the bank just go straight to the books without me even needing to review, match, and add. So I see these little icons indicating what came in that way, and they'll also be checked off because they're marked as cleared. And so I'm essentially ready to just resolve any differences that I may have here and be done with my reconciliation. So it becomes a real breeze if you're going through and utilizing the bank feed. As an accountant user, I have the option to undo a reconciliation if I need to. Something that's also in there, and I didn't show it, I don't think I've got one right now. After I've done a reconciliation, we have an area for history and reports. You can see the reconciles that you've completed, if there's any changes and auto adjustments, and even work to make corrections from here, so you've got a lot of visibility around that. I should have put one in there earlier. All right, and now let's get into reporting with the time that we've got left, and I'll try and save a few minutes for questions here at the end. I know we're running a little short. Reports, tools, customization, the option to share, save, and send, and our management reports. So I'm going in kind of reverse order here in the report section, but the reports tools is a spot where you can set the default date range and basis for any reports you run. So if you always want the default to be this year to date, or maybe this quarter to date, or perhaps you're working on a project and you just want to change the default because you know you'll be going in and running 10, 12 reports and you don't want to have to click through and set the date each time, this is the spot where as an accountant user you can do that. Same goes for cash or accrual basis. We've got a spot for accountant reports. It brings you into the area where all of the most frequently run reports for accountants are, as well as some specific accountant-only options. Something to keep in mind with reporting in QuickBooks Online, we really, really encourage you to go through and customize and then save, share, and even send out those customized reports. There's a lot here we're continuing to build. Part of this redesign is we launched about 10 brand new reports, and if I'm in the All Report area, I can see those when I drill into different areas. So right now we've surfaced any new reports we have along the top. You can jump right into those. I think there's even more in the business overview to create some additional canned and ready-to-go options. But if I am in a report with this new redesign, we've made it a lot easier to customize and, in my opinion, a lot easier to share. Whichever report you open up, we will surface the most common customizations along the top. Of course, the date range, how you want columns to display. If you're in a P&L and you want to do some period comparisons, you can turn those on in here to add those columns. And whatever you configure, you want to click Run Report afterwards, and it will update to reflect those changes. There's also the Customize button where we get into even more levels of detail. So maybe I want to filter out and run a profit and loss by location. and really narrow down in and see performance for a certain area. This is where you can see those options, and I think it's a lot easier now than it used to be. You can check boxes, and it adds those filters. You can uncheck them and put that back. Coming into a different type of report to show a little bit more detail around this. In QBO, for a lot of reports, we have the option to get into a summary or a detail level. Detail reports are always going to be the most customizable, something to keep in mind. So if I'm doing a customization for a transaction by detail, I might want to change my column, change what's showing along the top. Maybe instead of showing, my memo and description, I uncheck those or I keep them checked. I can drag and drop to rearrange them. So maybe I want certain columns to show up in front of others. But I can also do things like make debits and credit columns show. Maybe that's something that's important to me, and I can move those around. So detail accounts always have the highest level of customizing. Something that's also part of this redesign is the option to sort in ascending or descending order. You can also collapse down individual accounts or expand them out, and those settings are sticky if you go to print your report out. Options for emailing, printing. When you go to print with this redesign, it gives you the option to print portrait or landscape to maybe fit your needs or what makes sense for the report that you're viewing. And then also we can export to Excel or to PDF. A couple other little kind of things that I really like is it keeps the top bar in place if I'm scrolling down a big long report. Another thing that we've done as an improvement recently is if you have a very long report that's going to be hundreds and hundreds of lines, it'll load up and then give you the option to load more lines if you need to get down further in the report. So you're not waiting for the reports to spin and spin and spin. And then last but not least, oh, you know what? Sorry. It's definitely Monday morning here. After I've gone through and I've set up my customizations, I have the options to save those. So I can give the report a name. If I want, I can set up groups of reports and add the report to a group. So maybe I have monthly or weekly, or I've got different groups of types of employees or business, associates that I'd like to create groups of reports for. Those reports can be emailed out automatically, so even users that aren't on QBO, if you want to send them a package of reports and even include that as like an Excel attachment, you can set that up. And you also have the options to share with everybody that accesses this client or no one, where it's just something that shows up on your customized reports list. And your customized reports list is under my custom reports. And from here you can see if you have any of these to schedule out automatically, if they've been shared with other users, and if other people have shared with you, they'll show their names there as well. And here's my different groups that I can export out or edit and set up a schedule for to email these out on an interval. And then management reports. This is an area where you can create packages of reports for your clients. Something to keep in mind with this, you can create cover pages, table of contents. There's options here in the advanced settings to add headers and footers that will show up on every single page, even if you have a very big, long footer that you'd like to include. So you go together, you put this package up, and what you get is, in my opinion, a lot more presentation ready than going through and assembling individual reports. Maybe I have a table of contents, a cover page with some information, and as you can see, I've got my footers on every page here. All right, I think we are about out of time, and it doesn't look like we had any other questions come through. I want to close up, and we'll send this to you, but some links for some additional resources. We have a QuickBooks Online blog where we post updates on new features, new apps, different tips and tricks. My colleague Woody Adams manages a product video site where myself and he and some of our other employees make some videos that walk through functions. There's a tutorial page that you can share with clients. We have a new kind of made-over accountant help hub where you can see our help articles and community posts. And our Firm of the Future website has a lot of great resources as well. So we'll make sure we share all those links with you. All right. Anything else? I think we're right at 2 o'clock.
Well, we did have one question. Oh, 2 now. So one is there an interface between QBO and ProFX tax prep software? And the other is who owns the data? So we'll take these and then we'll wrap up.
Sure. So today our integration, so I mentioned this a little bit, or maybe I didn't really touch on it in the trial balance. You probably saw in the corner a button for View Tax Return. You can export the trial balance to Excel, so if you're using a tax program that can bring in an Excel import, absolutely can do so. But our View Tax Return actually links to our Pro Connect tax program, which used to be called Intuit Tax Online. So it doesn't have the integration back to our other Intuit tax products at this time, but there is a link for that. And we give you the option to try it out. All the QBO data flows over. And I believe when you first start trying out Pro Connect Tax, we give you the option for a few free tax returns, a couple of 1040s and some business returns too to kind of get started with it. And there's also a link to that in the accountant toolbox. Great question.
Valerie, let me
oh, sure.
let me elaborate on that just a little bit more. So when you export out, it exports out into Excel, and as long as the account names are pretty much the same as what you've mapped into your additional tax product, the account name should be the same from the QuickBooks Desktop file, so the mappings you have should still map to whatever you've done in the previous years exporting from a QuickBooks Desktop file. So it works pretty much the same way. You'll have a full working trial balance that you can import into your tax program, but there's not a direct interface link.
Awesome. Thanks for that additional detail. Cool. So who owns the data? So we talked before about setting up the master admin. So there's your master admin in your QBOA side of things for the accounting firm, and then there's also the master admin of the client files. So this can be something that you set up the client, and that's sort of what we consider to be the owner of the client file of the data, that master admin. And that's something that can be transferred if necessary. In the past, if you wanted to use wholesale billing, the firm had to be the master admin since the firm was the one paying for the account, but we've since changed that. So now you can have the client be the master admin regardless of whether the firm is absorbing the bill for QuickBooks Online.